All right, so it's time to get started. I was not planning to teach tonight, but I was given the opportunity earlier today, and one of my resolutions for the new year is to teach as often as I can. So, just like they say about don't pray for patience or God will give it to you. Don't say you want to teach, because those of you that had to suffer through my sermon on Sunday, and now you're going to have to suffer through class with me tonight. But hopefully it won't be too bad. But anyway, before we get started, I'll go ahead and open us up with a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful that you've given us this time to come together and to study your word and to be here with fellow Christians to learn and discuss your word with them. Heavenly Father, as we go through this study tonight, help us to glean a message from this lesson that we can take with us throughout this year. Thank you for all the things that you do for us, and forgive us of our sins. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so this is typically the time of year, either late the year before or early in the next year, where you hear the class or you hear the sermons about resolutions. And now, if you look in the Bible doesn't say a whole lot about making resolutions. It's neither good nor bad. There's just not a whole lot in there around, especially around New Year's resolutions. Certainly people resolve to do things in the Bible, and we're going to see even Jesus had goals when he came to this earth. But I think this, since a lot of us, not all of us, not everybody participates in making resolutions for the year. And I don't think it's a bad thing one way or the other. But a good number of us probably will or probably already have made a resolution or two or more on what things that we're going to change for the new year. And, some of those things are physical. Some of those things may be, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds or I want to do this or that. I want to learn a new skill. I want to learn how to play the guitar. I want to learn how to crochet. Whatever the case may be. We may have some physical goals that we have set for ourselves. But more importantly, if we're going to set goals, we should be also setting spiritual goals for ourselves. What we don't want to be is like this man here. In a year's time, you look back and you say, I can't believe it's been a year since I didn't become a better person. That's one of those goals that we all strive for, right? And it's not just at New Year's where we resolve to be a better person. We all, from time to time, look and say, you know what? I want to be a better person. But how many times do we look back at that and say, you know what? I kind of missed the mark. I didn't achieve that resolution. Most of the time we don't evaluate ourselves in that way. But think about that. When we resolve to become better people, do we achieve it? And if not, why not? What's standing in our way of becoming a better person? Is it other people around us, or is it the people that we're associating with? Is that why we cannot become a better person? Are we being held back in some way, shape, or form? Or is it things that we're doing to ourselves, or more importantly, the things that we're not doing that is preventing us from becoming a better person? And what I mean by not doing is, how much are we leaning upon others to help us become better people? How much are we using resources that are available to us through the church to help us become a better people? How much are we simply just opening our Bibles and reading what God has to say to us to help us become a better person? Because, as I mentioned in my sermon on Sunday, God says the greatest commandment is to love him, and the second greatest commandment is to love each other, to love your fellow man. Now, by loving him, you want to know what it is that he wants you to do. And by doing those things, what are you going to become? A better person. I think it was Albert Camus in his book Mere Christianity that had the statement, I'd rather live like there is a God and die to find out that there isn't than to live like there isn't and die to find out that there is. Now, that's not really how we want to go through life. We want to go through life knowing that there's a God, believing that there's a God, and wanting to do what God says. But the point is still true. If you live a life as a good person and you die to find out there is no God, well, you've still been a good person your entire life. So his point still makes sense, but we all here, we wouldn't be here tonight if we did not believe in God. We could find a million other things to do on a Wednesday night if we thought this was all just one big hoax. None of us in here believe that God does not exist. We're all here because we love God. So why is it so hard to achieve a goal of just being a better person? Now, there's other goals as well, and we're going to look at what it takes to achieve goals. Sometimes we make goals that are not achievable. And we've all, if you've been in corporate America for the last 20 years, we've all heard about SMART goals. I'm not going to teach a corporate type class on what SMART goals are, but there are ways to set goals where they will never be obtained, and there are ways to set resolutions or goals where they are at least possible. There are a million reasons why we will set a resolution, and what do they say? 2 weeks later is Quitter's Day, I think is what they say. So most people, I think they say about 30% of Americans set New Year's resolutions, and then in about 2 weeks, only 8% are still working at it. Only 8% are still on track with those resolutions. So that means 22%. I'm not going to do the math, but if you take 8 billion people in the world and 30% of the people in the world set a New Year's resolution, and then only 8% are still on track after 2 weeks, that's not even accounting for actually achieving the goal. That just means you've been at it for 2 weeks without stopping. It's probably a much, much, much smaller number that actually accomplish the goal they set out to do. But when you're setting goals, whether it be physical or spiritual, what are some of the things that you have to do in order to make them attainable? I mean, I'm kind of giving you the answers on the slide up behind me, but it can be a little more nuanced than that. What are some of the things we have to do when we're setting goals to make them attainable? They can't be overly broad, right? You've got to plan out your steps, so that's the A in SMART. You've got to plan out the steps to achieve it. You've got to have a plan. You can't just say, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds, but I'm going to start tomorrow because that cake left over from Christmas is calling my name today. So I'm going to wait and start on this goal to lose 20 pounds until after I've gotten all the good food from the holidays out of my house. That's not starting on the right foot, is it? And that's not setting an action plan in place to get to your goal.
If your target is too vague, say lose weight. Okay, I want to lose weight. If by the end of the year I've only lost 5 pounds, that's not accomplishing a lot, but yeah, I lost.
Yeah.
But be specific. That's your first one. That's your S. So can I tell a little
Yeah.
thing? I had a coworker who was a gym rat, and she was very dedicated to going to the gym in the afternoon, spending whatever amount of time she did. But she always said she did not go the first 3 weeks in January because all the newbies were there taking up all the equipment. But by the end of 3 weeks, they cleared out and she could go back in, and she resisted
Yep.
She didn't want to deal with all that mess that goes on the first couple weeks of the year.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. But you're right, being specific on what you are trying to accomplish. But then that leads into the second letter. Why are you trying to accomplish it? Because there are a number of reasons why I may want to lose weight, right? Am I doing it because I'm out of vanity? Because I'm only wanting to look better for other people? Or am I losing weight because of my health so that I'm in better condition to be there for my family and be there for my friends? When we set goals as Christians, they need to be meaningful, and not just meaningful to us. They need to be meaningful in the broader sense of how does this help me to be a better Christian? How does this help me to be a better servant? So meaningful is very important, because if you have meaning behind your goals, it gives you a little bit more motivation to work for it, right? If you know why you're working for something, it's maybe not easier, but at least it keeps you on track to achieve it longer, I would imagine. If your goal is something meaningful, it is definitely going to be a goal worth at least attempting to achieve. And then Josh mentioned, what steps are you going to take to achieve it? You can't just throw out a broad goal like Betsy said. If your goals are too broad, then you've already basically failed. Because, how do you define specific steps toward achieving a goal if you don't even really know what that goal is? Then the R is realistic. So I can say, you know what, I am going to climb Mount Everest by the end of this year. That is 100% unrealistic. Now, I could definitely try and die trying. That would most likely be the outcome of me attempting to climb Mount Everest, starting January 1st and attempting it before the weather gets just horrible up on too treacherous to climb. But I'm not going to achieve that. That's not realistic. There's no way to do that from where I'm at now and the training I've done to get to that point. So you got to set realistic goals. You got to do the same thing in your Christian walk. A lot of times people get out of the baptistry, and that's the most on fire for God that they're ever going to be in their life. That's just unfortunate. That's the unfortunate truth of it. A lot of people, it wanes over time. How do you get that back, though? You don't say, hey, I'm just going to just throw myself in 100% and I'm going to rekindle that fire, and let's be realistic. How about we start by saying, I'm going to read my Bible. I'm going to try to read my Bible every day. I'm going to set realistic goals to build myself back up to where I was. Trying to go all in and do everything all at once, not realistic. It's just not. Setting yourself up to fail. That's never the proper way to start out with a resolution or with a goal, is by setting yourself up to fail. And then timely. You've got to set a time. Again, that goes back to being specific. When do you want to achieve this? I could say, like Betsy said, I want to lose 20 pounds, but is that in 6 months or is that in 2 years? If I don't set a time on it, I'll just leave it open-ended. Eventually, if I eat a little less every day, it might take me 3 years and I'll be 20 pounds lighter. Did I achieve my goal? Well, I didn't set a time frame on it. You have to set time frames on goals. So again, set SMART goals, or whatever you want to call them, but make your goals obtainable. Because if you start out with an unattainable goal or no plan on how to obtain those goals, you may as well not even start. Because most of us in here, if we fail at something we're trying to do, we're not going to feel good about it. And then the next time that we want to try that again, we're going to remember our past failings. And those sorts of things will build up over time. Do your best to set goals that you can achieve, even if they seem like they're too small. If that's what you have to do in order to achieve your goal, start there. And then make them larger as you go along and see how that works out for you. When we think about goals, we got to think which goals are more important. So, are the spiritual goals more important to us? Are these physical goals more important to us? We need to weigh that question. And Jesus talks about that here. It says, "For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul?" So what is that telling us? Which one's more important? The physical goals or the spiritual goal? Spiritual goals, absolutely. And there's no question. I mean, this leaves no ambiguity in this verse. There is no profit. We could go out and achieve every physical goal that we want to achieve. We put our mind to it, and we've accomplished everything physically that we could do. Remember that, and I mentioned this in the sermon on Sunday, the man that built the bigger barns because he harvested so much. What did it profit him? Didn't profit him anything, did it? Because he wasn't around to reap the benefits of it. His soul was required of him that same night. So, again, our goals need to be focused in the right direction. Is it wrong to have physical goals? Is it wrong to want to better ourselves physically? Or have, not even physically from a health standpoint necessarily, but maybe we want to be more successful in our job. Maybe we want to be more successful in the amount of money that we make in our career. Maybe we want to learn a new skill. Maybe there's a million different physical goals that you can define for yourself. Those aren't bad things. Those things can be important. And Paul, in his letter to Timothy, talks about that. It says in 1 Timothy 4, verse 8, "For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come." So Paul here doesn't tell Timothy to ignore physical training. He says it does have some value, but he says godliness is where you really need to be focusing your attention, because that's where the real value is, and that's where the value for everything is in your godliness. And holding promise for both the present life. So while you're here on this earth, your godliness will help you be a better Christian. It'll help you be a better neighbor. It'll help you be a better friend. It'll help you be a better parent. It'll help you with all of those things. But then in the life to come, you'll be rewarded for the godliness that you've displayed while you were here on earth. The godliness that you've achieved. Keep looking at Mario. He almost looks like he has a comment on the tip of his tongue. But and I'm about out of slides, so Mario's going to have to start talking soon. All right. Oh, and so does he. He says it is of some value.
But I think what's so wonderful about that is that we learn how to put things in perspective. When you consider what is important, like for me, I had this goal, but I didn't get it because I make New Year's resolutions. As a matter of fact, Lisa challenged me today, asking me what was my resolution for 2025. perspective that you want to be better, whether it's that or learning to be a better teacher or better orator, those things are going to just come according to the will of God, according to the measure of faith that's given to us. But the training itself is done every day in what we learn, how we learn it, and how we implement it. That's my perspective on it.
No, absolutely. We got to apply. Hey, again, I go back to my sermon on Sunday, the illustration of the man that got the piece of ground. Well, it wasn't ready-made for growing crops. God gave him the piece of ground, but what did he have to do? He had to work it and work it really hard to make it suitable for planting. The same thing with ourselves. We can't just float through this life and just think that, you know what, I try to be a good person and that should be enough. That's what the world would tell you. Is, you know, you see those commercials all the time about just love. Jesus is love, and that's all that it takes. No, that's not all that it takes, and that's not what I ever meant when I say that when Jesus said the greatest commandment and then the second to it are love, because that love is driving you to do something. Right? It's not just a love where it's a feeling that makes you feel good. It's a love that drives you to action. Most of us in here, and I'll talk to the men, if we say we love our wives, what does that mean? Most of us in here would do just about anything our wives would ask us to do, even if it was something horrible. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he said, "Well, I've gone shopping with my wife and my girls, and he ends up being the guy standing outside the shop holding all the purses while they're inside shopping. So he's looking like some sort of crazy guy with 5 purses hanging off of his arms, and he's holding everything for everybody while they go inside because he doesn't like to go in and shop. Well, would you do that for somebody you didn't love? Some stranger came up to you on the street and said, "Hey, hold my purse for me." Would you be like, that's kind of an odd thing? But if your wife asked you to hold her purse, most of us in here would be carrying a purse right along behind our wife. So it drives you to action. The kind of love you're supposed to have is even more. The love that you're supposed to have for God is even more than what you would have for your wife. But most of us would say that we would do anything for our wives, and most of the time we should be bearing that out in our action. Same thing is true with our love for God and our love for other people. Our actions should show how much we love them. Yes, Betsy. Absolutely. And that's part of setting meaningful. That's part of the meaningful part of setting goals. Why is it important to you? If you say, "I want to be successful because I want my bank account to swell up and I want to be on Forbes 500 richest people list," that's one thing. But if you take the attitude that Betsy was just talking about and you say, "You know what? I would like to be more successful. I would like to earn more money so I can help more people." And that's part of the meaning behind why I want to achieve the goal that I want to achieve. Then that, absolutely, it's a physical goal that also feeds you and others spiritually. Same thing with the physical. Say you want to get in better physical health. Well, if you do that just for vanity, that's one thing. But if you do that because you want to be in better physical health so that next year you can go on the door knocking campaign and not be out of breath by the time it's done, and you want to use that better physical health to save more souls, that is absolutely a worthwhile goal that both contains physical aspects, but it also contains spiritual aspects. So that is the type of meaningful goal that we should all be setting, especially when we're talking about physical goals. We should always try. Now, it's not always going to be the case, but we should always be trying to figure out, well, how can I better myself so I can help others? Or how can I better myself so I can be a better Christian, a better follower of God? Some physical goals, if my goal is to lose 5 pounds, I'm not sure how that is going to relate into being allowing me to be better. But hey, if you achieve that goal, then that's great. That's a great goal. Nothing wrong with that goal. You achieved it. Be proud of yourself. Be proud that you achieved the goal.
Well, you be practicing self-control.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I do. That was one of my resolutions. I already failed.
Well, yeah, you're sitting next to Mario, so you clearly didn't. Because normally you're over there and Mario's over there.
Seriously though, that goes for your self-control. I mean, I'm a chocoholic. If there's chocolate in the house, I'm going to eat. Period. So I said I'm not going to buy any chocolate. And you don't understand how big of a statement that is. That is for me. But
So day one, you've already failed at that?
So, but yeah, that the temperance part, self-control, mixed up in
Well, you're in luck, Steve, because the price of chocolate continues to go up because of the price of the cocoa bean. So it may get to the point where you have to cut out chocolate, Steve. You might get some help.
When we're trying to better our spirituality, we're constantly trying to take something bad out of our lives and put something good in. If you only try to remove the bad, then what happens is usually you fail at removing that bad, or something else will just come in its place. But when you take that bad thing out and put something else in its place that's good, it's much easier to stay on track. And I can't help but think that would help with chocolate or with whatever else. And grab some carrots. But I felt this for years. For a long time, I would try to just, I got to stop doing the bad stuff. I just got to get all these bad things out of my life. And I constantly would fail at it. And it wasn't until I started to bring in prayer and reading my Bible and doing things for others that I started to have any kind of success.
Yeah, absolutely. We should be definitely. What's that old saying? Idle hands are the devil's workshop. We do need to be replacing the bad things with good things. We don't need to just be no longer doing the bad things and then we're just end up not doing anything, because then that's just going to lead us back into, well, I got a lot of time on my hands, so what's the easiest thing to find? Something bad to do. Satan certainly presents us with plenty of opportunities to do the wrong thing. So the other thing, and I was talking to someone today, and it's kind of going off on a tangent. We talk about removing bad things from our lives, and we definitely should, but we can look at the example of Paul. He did a lot of bad things in his life, and God forgave him. In fact, Saul became Paul, who became the apostle that a good chunk of our New Testament is written by. He ministered to numerous churches throughout Asia. Well, the one thing God did not give him, though, was the ability to forget all the bad things that he had done. And I think one of the reasons, and there's probably a number of reasons why, God could very easily, when he forgives us, erase our memory. I wonder if sometimes part of the reason he doesn't do that is so that we don't forget those times. Even though he's forgiven us, he doesn't want us to feel guilty about those things. But just like when Paul asked him to remove the thorn in the flesh, God was like, no. You'll be stronger through your suffering. I think and Paul is quoted many times of reminding people how bad of a person he was, that he was a chief sinner. I don't think remembering, I used to be this way. I don't want to be that way anymore. Remembering those things of what you may have done before and what you've replaced it with, and how much better you feel now than what you did before, I think that's a motivator as well. I think it helps us to remember where we came from and how we maybe used to be, and then how we are now and how much better it is. And the inverse of that is true. Remember the prodigal son, he had it really, really good. Then he went away and squandered it all. Well, what did he remember? He remembered how good he had it. He remembered how good his father's servants had it. He's like, well, I'll go back there, and at least if I'm treated like the servants, it'll be better than my condition now. So he didn't forget how good it could be if he went back to the father. Now he didn't know for certain how that would turn out, but it turned out well for him. Again, I think that's one of the reasons why, we set goals. Even if we fail at the goals, we can use that to motivate us to try again and not fail next time. We can also use it if we succeed. We can say, hey, you know what? I overcame this thing that was bogging me down or weighing me down. Because I remember what it felt like when I used to do X, Y, or Z, and I'm glad I've overcome that. So again, setting those goals and striving to achieve those goals is very, very important. We have some Bible verses. Jesus had goals. We're going to see here, and if someone can read Luke 19, verse 10. We're going to see Jesus' number one goal. Yeah.
For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost.
So Jesus had a goal, right? What was Jesus' goal? Seek and save the lost. So he came to this earth to seek and save the lost, and we're also going to see in John 6:38 another goal Jesus had, but it ties into seeking and saving the lost. That was his primary focus, and that's what he was about, his entire ministry, and that's what he left us with, his actions and his words as he was striving toward that goal of seeking and saving the lost. John 3:16, probably most of us don't even have to look that one up, but if someone can read John 3:16.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life.
So not only was it Jesus' number one goal to seek and save the lost, God sent him to fulfill that goal. That he so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son. So he sent Jesus with the goal in mind to seek and save the lost, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. So God supported Jesus in this goal, sent him to earth, and again, Jesus was all about seeking those that were lost and trying to bring them into salvation. John 8:29, and maybe Josh won't have to read this one, but you can if you want.
And he that sent me is with me.
So not only did Jesus have this goal, not only did God send him, God never left him. God was with him the entire time. So again, Jesus was supported in this goal that he had. And we're going to see John 6:38, kind of I don't know if you'd say a nice little bow on all of this, but we're going to, somebody read John 6:38 and we're going to see something here.
For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me.
So Jesus' goal, seek and save the lost, it was not his will, it was the will of him who sent me. Jesus' whole purpose on earth was to do the will of his Father. And what did God say? He sent his only begotten Son. God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son. And then he said, God has never left Jesus. He was with him, supporting him through all that he was doing. So I would imagine that we can extrapolate from that if we do the same things, if we're striving to do God's will, what is God going to do? He's not going to leave us either, is he? If we're about our Father's business, God's not going to leave us. So if we have goals like Jesus had, it's important to note Jesus had goals when he came here on the earth. He had things that he came here to accomplish. So it's not a bad thing if we set goals for ourselves and think about the loftiness of that goal, to seek and save the lost. How many people were lost? And Jesus knew going in, because Jesus has foreknowledge of what's going to happen. He knew going in he was only going to be saving. I mean, it says the way is narrow. The gate into heaven is narrow. He knew that his ultimate goal was to save the entire world. But he also knew that he would only be able to save a small number. Did that keep him from coming and doing his Father's will? No, it did not. It did not discourage him to say, hey, you know, there's, I don't know how many people were alive in Jesus' day, but let's just say there were 1 million people. Well, only 10,000 of those are actually going to believe in me. Well, that was 10,000 souls that Jesus looked at and said, you know what, they're worth saving. If there was only one soul, Jesus would have came and did what he did. Mario, did you have a comment?
I'm smiling over here because I think you finally hit what I think in a nutshell can help us all. Because I think sometimes we unintentionally get paralysis of analysis and we unintentionally mix ourselves up in making these resolutions and when I think for me, it's just been within the past 5, 10 years that I come to realize the older I get, come to realize that I got a long way to go and I don't know as much as I can think I know. All that to say this, Jason, for me, understanding what Jesus meant when he says that I only speak what my Father tells me to speak and I only do as I see my Father doing, to me, I think that summarizes everything of goals and reasons and becoming a better person.
Yep.
I think if we do that, just follow those, we don't have to try to figure out how we're going to be a better person. We don't have to figure out what kind of resolutions we're going to make. And I think it simplifies it for me. Just do that, stay on task, and
Yep.
then we're just to say we're good soldiers.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, did you have something?
You know, what I picked up on what you were just saying, Jesus came to save the world. He knew how many people were going to accept him, but that was his goal. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to this past week asking them, hey, what is your New Year's resolution? Oh, I don't do resolutions, I'm just going to fail at them anyways. Missing the whole point. The idea is to improve upon yourself at some point. So if you set off to have
Yep. Yeah, too many times we allow the result to define success. And with our Christian walk, it's more about the effort and the work. We don't always control what the result's going to be. We can't. We talk to 100 people and only one follows the plan of salvation and is brought into life with Christ. We get discouraged because, hey, a 1% success rate, none of us would look at that and say, hey, that's a great thing. But it really is, because that's one more person that is now saved.
And you don't know how many people that one might influence.
Absolutely. So, allowing the result to define your success is not always the best, especially in your spiritual walk. To Josh's point, it's am I growing? Am I becoming better? Did I plan on having 12 people into my home? Maybe I did, but maybe I only had 5. Well, that's 5 more than I had last year. Yeah.
I think that's why we need each other, because we need each other to encourage when you're feeling down or low or whatever. You have somebody else to build you up, and I think you have to express, maybe not like every goal, but like I've been trying to organize the house, and I told JD the other day, I was like, you got to keep me going. And he come in the bedroom, he's like, that doesn't look like your closet you're cleaning. I said, I'm getting to it. But I still, like, I needed him to be like, hey, come on, get up, because eventually you just give up because you get overwhelmed or whatever happens. And I'll just sit there, like, okay, never mind, just forget it all. And I think that's what we do also is if we fail at all, we just say forget it.
Yep.
And keep trying. Like, if we're at the end of the year and the goal was 12 people, we just be like, never mind, just forget it.
How many people in here fail before you even start? I mean, I know I've looked at a project and it's like, where do I even start? I know what I won't know what I want the end result to be, but I don't even know where to get started from. That's where it is important, you know. I may not have the answers for how to do this or that, but maybe I know someone that does, and they can get me started and point it in the right direction. And then maybe I'll need help along the way too. But I know what my end result wants to be, and to achieve a goal, you don't always have to do it by yourself, right? You can ask for help. And in fact, that's what the Bible talks about. When it talks about a 2-fold cord is hard to break, but a 3-fold cord is impossible to break. You're better when you're allowing people to help you to achieve. And you're also, in a roundabout way, helping them as well, because they're helping you. You're both achieving this thing. Maybe they didn't have as big a need to achieve the goal that you've set for yourself. But you know what? You're both working on something. You're both working together, and it may just be that they're working on helping others. And that may be the fulfillment of their goal. Yeah, absolutely. How many in here, and we're going to wrap up on this, how many in here, I've tried to learn to play the guitar a number of times. How many in here have ever tried to learn to play the guitar? Quite a few? Now, how many of you have been successful learning to play the guitar? I'll keep my hand down too. I stopped before the calluses develop. They always say that you have to develop the calluses on your fingers in order to play the guitar. Well, most of us don't get that far. The fingers start to hurt, and it's like, I'm not going to go play today. Well, when your fingers start to hurt, that's when the calluses are starting to form. So you got to keep going, and you got to keep going. Well, most of us never develop those calluses because it just becomes too hard. We're not seeing the results. I go in, I'll play a little bit, and it's like, it sounds nothing like what I'm hearing on the radio. But you don't think about the thousands of hours that person playing that guitar on the radio has spent learning how to play the way that they play. Most of us stop before the calluses develop, and that's something we can all keep in our minds. We have to work at things until the calluses form. That means we've got to work hard, and we've got to not stop working until we achieve the goal. And by then, we will know where we started, we will know where we finished, and we'll have that good feeling. The music will sound a whole lot sweeter if you just keep at it, and you keep at it, and you'll eventually reach your goal. So hopefully you got something out of this tonight. We're a minute over. I apologize for that. I do appreciate all of the comments. Hopefully if you set goals for the new year, you're successful in achieving those goals. And like Kelly mentioned, if you need help achieving goals that you've set for yourself, you're not alone. If you look around, there's a number of people in the room tonight, even being a Wednesday night. The kids haven't come over yet. There's a number of people in here that'd be more than willing to help. And who knows, they might find that, hey, I'd like to try to learn to do that, or I'd like to achieve that as well. So yeah, certainly all the success in the world to whatever it is that you've tried to do. So thank you very much for your attention.